Daled, 74. Guf Amarav ein Mavui Nitra Belechi V'Koreh. So we know the din. You have a three-sided mavui that opens up to Rosh Hashanah, and you have an opening from a chutzner that opens up into the mavui, and there are batim that open up into the chutzner. So because the mavui opens up to Rosh Hashanah, if you don't do a corrective activity at the opening of the mavui into the Rosh Hashanah, because you see the Rosh Hashanah, Chazal made a gzeir that you're not allowed to carry in the mavui unless you put a lechi or a koreh at the entrance to the mavui, the interface between the mavui and the Rosh Hashanah. So we've been always learning that. Now, Rav gives us the principle now that you need chatzeiros. So you need at least two chatzeiros that open up. If you only have one chatzir that opens up in a mavui, then you can't carry in that mavui. You have to have at least two chatzeiros. And according to Rav, you need at least two houses in each chutzner. Rashi says, "Batim lechatzer, shnei batim lechol chutzner, shnei chatzeres lemavui." Ushmuel amar afilu bayis echad v'chatzer achas. Shmuel says is mekel. Let's say you have one chutzner, and you don't even need a chutzner. Oh, you have a chutzner with one bias, and the bias opens up in the mavui. So you only need one chutzner with a bias, and so you don't need two batim. And the other opening in the mavui is only a bias without a chutzner. Shmuel says you could carry in a mavui with a lechi and a koira. Rav Yochanan amar afilu churva. Rav Yochanan is even more mekel. That you don't even need a bias, just a churva, a ruin. And the chutzner opening up with a bias in it. So Rav Yochanan is even more lenient. Normally, by Rav Yosef, on Rav Yochanan, afilu b'shvil shel kromim. Does Rav Yochanan also matir? You don't. So we said a churva. What if you had a dirt road, a dirt path from a vineyard that opens in the mavui, and a chutzner on the other side? Will that work? Whatever you want to say about a churva, it's got walls and maybe a broken down roof, so people will sleep there. But a path at a vineyard that nobody is going to, it's not considered a dira. And therefore, that would not work for the mavui. Rav Yochanan is consistent from another source. This nan we learn in the Mishnah. Rab Shimon, echad gagois v'echad karfeifos v'echad chatzeres. You have a roof on top of a house that's also a rishus hayachid. A karfeif is like a corral. A chatzer, we know, is a rishus hayachid, but it's a chatzer. There's no bias there. So Chachamim hold that you're not allowed to carry from a chatzer to a gag or from a gag to a karfeif, even though they're normally the din is min deraisa, so you can carry from rishus hayachid. But the Rabbanan make a gzeira that you can't go from one rishus to another rishus, because we're concerned that you're going to then go to a Rosh Hashanah. However, Rab Shimon disagrees. Rab Shimon says you can carry from a roof to a karfeif to a chutzner, right? As long as the objects that you're carrying started in the chutzner, in one of those other non-bayit rishus hayachids. Rishus hachasei lekelim sheshavsu l'sochan. However, if an object was in the house, you can then move it into the chutzner and then to all these other places. Reb Shimon will hold if it starts in these other places, you can move it from place to place. And v'omar Rav halachik Reb Shimon. However, v'hu shelo yirvu, as long as let's say, multiple batim that open up in the chutzner, the people did not make an eruv. If they did not, those private people cannot carry from their bayit to the chutzner. So we're not worried that, Rav is not worried that according to Rav Shimon, things from the house are going to end up in the gag or the karfeif because they didn't make an eruv. So you can't schlep things from the bayit to the chutzner. Aval ervu, but if the people in the chutzner made an eruv and they can carry from their house into the chutzner, so gazrinon, we're concerned that things are going to get carried from the bayis to the chutzner and from there to the gag. However, ushmuel amar, bein irvu uvein lo irvu. We're makel, even if they don't make an eruv, we're not goizer. And even if they did make an eruv, maybe you're going to move things from the bayis to the chutzner. Rav Yochanan, like Rab Shimon, bein irvu uvein lo irvu. Rab Yochanan has the same shita as Shmuel. So you see, Rabbi Yochanan is not concerned that people are going to take from their house to the chutzner. Chanami. So here as well, regarding a mavui, we're not concerned lo gazrin dil ma'asi lafuke mani de chutzner lechurva. Because if Rabbi Yochanan allows you to carry into a mavui with a lech and a koira, with a chutzner on one side and a churva on the other side, so that means you're allowed to carry from the chutzner into the mavui. Well, why aren't you concerned that maybe it'll end up going from the mavui to the churva? So we're not concerned because Rav Yochanan is consistent, because in the case of chatzeros, gagos, and karfevos, he's not geyser regarding this issue that we're concerned of objects going from the house to the chutzner. It's an analogous case to this case of the mavui. Yosef Rav Bruna, the Ka'amar Lashmaitzer. Rav Bruna was learning this sugya. Armle Rabbi Lazar bar Beirav. Rabbi Lazar, who was a student of Rav, wondered, Amr Shmuel Hachi? Because remember, Shmuel argues with Rav that afilu bayisechad v'chatzar achas. Rav said you needed 2 chatzeros, and the chatzeros each have to have 2 batim. And Rav says, no, you need a chutzner with 1 bayis, and on the other side, just a bayis without a chutzner. And Rabbi Lazar couldn't believe that Shmuel said that. Omer le'in, no, Shmuel did say that. Omer le achvili ushpechiza. Ushpiza. Go, you take me to where Shmuel is staying in the hotel. Achvili took him. Also, come to Shmuel. So Rabbi Lazar presented himself to Shmuel. Omer le, Omer mar hachi. Did you really say this halacha? Omer le'in. Shmuel said, yes, I did. So Rabbi Lazar retorted, how could you say that? V'hamar hu de Omer, you're the one who said, Ein lanu be'eruvin ela kiloshin mishnasenu. We only have dinim by Eruvin, the way the Mishnah talks about it. And the Mishnah says, Mavui lechatzeres kechatzer labatim. Just like you cannot have a chatzer without multiple batim, so you can't have a mavui without multiple chatzers opening into it. How could you say that even only one chatzer opens up the mavui, it meets the criteria of a mavui that can be corrected? So ishtik. So Shmuel didn't have an answer. However, kibli minei lokilit, we're still not sure. Did Shmuel accept this retort of Rabbi Lazar? Did he go back to hold like Rav? So Toshma, there was a mavui. The Havadayer Bey, Ivus Bar Ihi. Ivus Bar Ihi lived there. Ivus put up a lechi in the mavui at the opening to the Rosh Hashanah, and Shmuel gave it his haskama and said, you're allowed to carry there. Also Ravanan Shadya. Ravanan came and knocked, after Shmuel died, he knocked the lechi out so that Ivus would know that you can't carry in this mavui. This lechi doesn't work because you don't have 2 chatzeros and 2 batim. Apparently what it was 1 chatzer and there was a shul that opened up into it. So L'chura, this is like the case of a chotzer and a bayis. So, and that's why they assumed that Shmuel held like his shita and he didn't go back on it. However, Rav Anan knocked the lechi down after Shmuel died. Omar, mavur the darnebei, vasina mishmei demar Shmuel. How Eva protested? How can you knock the lechi down? I've lived here in this mavui. We've carried it, and Shmuel had no problem with it. Nesi Rav Anan barav nishdayamin. How can Rav come and knock it out? So since the lechi was there throughout the life of Shmuel, Shmami no lo kibla minei. Rabbi Elazar, when Rabbi Elazar came to confront Shmuel, obviously Shmuel didn't change his mind. He didn't reverse himself and go back to Rav. However, the Gemara says, Lo emelacha kibli minei. No. Rabbi Elazar did cause Shmuel to change his mind. He was makabel, and it really was not kosher there. Why did he permit? There was like a shamis of the shul, who ate in the shul there. V'asi bayis v'beiknisht, and established like a house in the shul. Or he ate somewhere else, but he slept there in the shul. And Ivus bar Isavar mekompita gorim, that perhaps they paskin that way because we decide what is a person's dira based on where he eats. And therefore, he thought that Shmuel was paskening that you're allowed to make a correction to this mavli, even there's only one person living there, i.e. the chutzner where Eva lived, because the shamas didn't eat there. However, really, Shmuel tamei davar makom lina gar. Really, Shmuel held it was where you slept. So since there were two people sleeping there, that's why he permitted. And there seems to be a right that he went back to the shita of Rav. Amir Rav. Mavui should siro echad nachri v'siro echad Yisrael. You have a chutzner that opens up to a mavui where a Jew lives, and a chutzner that opens up to the mavui where a non-Jew lives. Ein ma'arvin also derech, and then where the Jew lives, there's multiple other homes behind it that open up to it through windows, not doors. The halach is ein ma'arvin also derech chalonos. Latiro, and those houses also open up into the Rosh Hashanah. So we can't make an eruv between the houses using the windows, latiro derech tzochin lamavli, in order to be able to carry in such a mavli. You'd have to go out through the Jew's house, through the chotzer, into the mavli. But we're not allowed to make such an eruv. Amrli abayil Rav Yosef. Amr Rav afilu b'chotzer. So if a Jew and a Nachri are living in a chotzer, and there's other Jewish homes that open up behind it, and those also open up to Rabim. They don't open up to the chotzer, where we say that you're not allowed to make an erev derech chalonos. Amr lay in. It's not just opening up into a mavui where we say you can't make an eruv, even if they're living in a chutzner by itself. The ilo omar mai, because why is it should be a difference? So I'll tell you why there might be a difference. Havamina time in the Rav Mishum Ksover ein moving niter belecha v'koira ad shubatim chatzes psuchim l'sochol. To tell me this svara that we've been learning tonight, that the reason why it doesn't work is because you can't really have a mavui unless there's batim. You have two chatzeros at a minimum that open up to it, You have to have two batim in the chutzner there. And the house of the Nochri is not considered like a bias. And that's why Rav didn't matir. So if that's the reason, Tarti Lamali. I mean, we already know this din that you don't have you can't correct the mav unless there's batim v'chatzeres. What is this case adding? It seems to be superfluous. Tarti Lamali. So the Gemara says tzricha. We need both cases. The imeahi. If I would have only had the case of the non-Jew, havamina diras nochri shma dira, because maybe wherever a non-Jew lives is considered a dira. To consider it, even if it opens up to a mavui, even though it's a Gentile, it's the mavui it'll meet the criteria of a mavui. However, that's a havamina kamash malon. The diras nochri lo shma dira. So I had to be told the case opening up in a mavui to show that even by a mavui it's not considered a dira. The imehach, if I would have only other case into a chatz havamina lo yadana batim kama, we wouldn't know how many batim necessarily you need to open up into a chatz. Kamash balon, batim train. You need a minimum of 2 batim. If you have a Jew and a Nachri, so you're not allowed to make it won't work to make an Eruv, even to, for example, to rent schiris from the non-Jew. According to the Mandoma, that you need even one versus one schiris. Remember, there was a machlekes from Meir and Rabbi Yehuda regarding that, but it's not even considered a bias. Hashtam Rav afilu chotzer. So now that Rav says that by a chotzer you need 2 legitimate houses, so time of the Rav the kosover osher lasos yochid b'makom nachri. We don't want to encourage single Jews to live with a single Gentile. So therefore, we don't allow them to make an Eruv. We make it hard for them to live there. So Amrav Yosef Yachi Hainu Shamina Le Rav Tavod Amrav Nachri Trei Zimni V'Leider Mayamar. So now I understand when they said Nachri, and I didn't understand what he was talking about. Now I understand we need regarding Mavui the din of Nachri, and then we need another din of Nachri regarding Chatzar. Okay. We did a little bit of Ayin Hey, but just I wanted to get to the Mishnah.